Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2017 Ford Expedition Limited. Up front is a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6, and down below is a 6-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this Ford Expedition for two reasons. First of all, I don't drive many Ford Expeditions, and this is the final year for this generation of Expedition. It started in 2008 and lasted until 2017. The second reason is that later today on the channel, if you're watching this in real time, if not, it'll already be posted, I'm reviewing the 2025 Ford Expedition, which is all new for this year. So this will be an interesting step back to see where we've come from to hopefully better understand where we're going. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zachbradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. Last but not least, huge thank you to North Naperville Autos for letting me borrow their Ford Expedition for today's video. If you'd like to browse their inventory, you can do so in the description below. But let's get back to that 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 known as the EcoBoost V6. Well, there were a couple EcoBoost engines, actually quite a handful, and this was their heaviest application, EcoBoost. They had a 3 liter, a 2.7, a 2.3, but this was the biggest that they ever did and the most powerful at 365 horsepower. This was for their truck applications. I like it. I like the EcoBoost engine. I think it offers a lot of good solid power, and these can be modified and tuned to make a lot of horsepower, as my friend Ethan would tell you. I reviewed his Expedition a long time ago that had some built mods, and it is an absolute hoot. Now, you do suffer a little bit of reliability issues. The EcoBoost engines aren't the most reliable in the industry. However, they've been relatively solid, and this is up at 183,000 miles, so I have to imagine it's done relatively okay. Like I said, paired to it is a 6-speed automatic. Every single Expedition from this era is going to have a 6-speed automatic. Now, some of them had select shift and some of them don't. This one does, which is nice to see. Last but not least about the Expedition, this particular one is rear-wheel drive. However, you could find them in 4-wheel drive throughout the era. How does it feel to drive the Expedition? Well, honestly, looking forward out the windshield, I might as well be driving an F-150. It rides much like an F-150. It drives and has the proportions of an F-150, and that's no stranger. There's no question about that because it rides on the same platform. It's actually built in the same factory. But visibility is good. It doesn't have the smoothest ride in the world, but again, it's a trucky ride. It does have more weight, so that does help with the ride a little bit, but don't expect a Lincoln Navigator experience for the cheap. It is rather long too, so you're gonna have to get used to that. However, it's not the hardest thing to navigate around the streets. As far as road noise, it's actually pretty quiet. I have the fan going for my AC here today. That's probably the only thing you really hear in the background, which is definitely nice. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a mix of physical and digital gauges. So right in the center, I get my physical speedometer, but off to the left and right, we have some digital screens that you can customize around. These are a little bit smaller, but again, 2017 and really design, 2015, 2014, 2013, this was well before the complete screen infotainment system and a lot different than what you'll see here in 2025. But it still works well. It's easy to see and it's easy to navigate. On the steering wheel on the left, we have our selectors for that gauge cluster screen, as well as we have our cruise control. And off to the right, we have our other selectors for the other side of the gauge cluster screen: volume, phone options, and voice commands. Off to the left, we do have our Sony speaker. This does have a Sony speaker system, climate control vent, and headlight switch, as well as gauge dimmer switch sort of hidden off by the steering wheel. And moving on to the door, we have the power mirrors, power locks, and power windows just below the latch to get in and out. Moving into the center, we do get a cubby up at the top, and then our infotainment system. It is Sync 3, and it's touch screen. You have some climate options in there if you want them. I like this generation of infotainment. Not only do I think it's aged well enough for it being 8 years old, but also it's easy to see. It's easy to navigate. It's very friendly, and I like that a lot. And here is the backup camera in case you were curious. Down below that, we do have our hazard switch and CD player, and we have some buttons, switches, and dials for that radio and media system. We have our favorites and skip track. We have heated and ventilated seats for both the passenger and the driver, and then our climate controls, dual zone climate, where to send it in the center. Pretty basic stuff here, but I like how it's laid out, pretty easy to figure out. Off to the left, we have a climate control vent, rear tailgate release, traction control off, our trailer brake adjustments, as well as a coin holder where the 4-wheel drive settings would normally go. Off to the right, we have another climate vent, a cubby, and a 12-volt outlet. Moving into the center, you get another cubby, so lots of storage space here in the Expedition, as well as the center console has this wood accent surrounding the shifter to the left. Like I said, the shifter does have the plus-minus ability. And off to the right, we have cup holders. So we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the Ford Expedition from 2017, and I'm happy to report that it does in fact pass even with the liner in, but if you do have an even bigger cup, you could take the liner out and it will accommodate it. So very, very nice to see there in the Expedition. Then we do have a center console with 2 USB-A's and a 12-volt outlet inside. Then we'll talk about the seats. The seats are heated, cooled, power, and memory, and I really like them. They're comfortable. However, there was a King Ranch version of the Expedition in this era, and I can only imagine how much more comfortable that version was. However, speaking of seats, we do have 2 more rows of seating, kind of the calling card of the Expedition. So let's hop back there and go do some backseat reviews. Getting into the Expedition, we do have a really nice grab handle right here. That is very, very helpful. But once we are back here, a couple of things to note. First of all, I'm 5'11", not a small guy, and I fit back here very comfortably. It does have 2 captain's chairs, although I believe in the era you could get it with a bench seat. This doesn't have that. We do have a 12-volt outlet. We have a wall outlet down below. We have heated seats and our own climate controls, as well as our own media. So plenty of things to love in the back of the Expedition. And you get this nice wide aisle. You get wood accents on the door, and you have vents that you can control. So not only can you control the climate controls themselves, but the vents as well. We do have these lights, incandescent, which is fine for 2017. And that's it. This is a really nice place to be. This is kind of getting towards that first class experience. And don't forget, there were trim levels up above this. The Limited was kind of a mid trim. So very, very nice to feel that. However, let's hop into the 3rd row and check it out from back there. All right, honestly, I fit back here pretty well. These seats are a lot cushier than the ones up front. Not totally sure why that is, but I can sit back here normally as an adult. My knees aren't hitting the seat in front of me. My head's not hitting the ceiling. I get more vents for myself back here. I get 2 cup holders on this side, 1 cup holder on that side. I get a light over my back here, so if I want to do some light reading while on a road trip with mom and dad, I can do so in the very back of the Expedition. That's really, really nice. This is a good spot to be in, and this is a huge benefit over the Ford Explorer of the same generation, or really any generation. This is a good 3rd row. This is a proper 3rd row, and I'm not the smallest person, so if you have kids, this is gonna be their own first class back here. Very, very nice to see. If you wanna take everyone to the lake house and tow the boat, this will do it. Let's hop into the very back. We'll take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, around the back of the Expedition, there's a handle here with a button. Press that, and it is a power tailgate, which is very nice to see. It might have slowed down over the last 8 years. Once we are back here, this is the storage that you get while the seats are up. You can pull this up. You get a tiny little bit more amount of storage, but not very much. Now, if you come over here, press that once in the middle right there, and both seats will fold down. I forgot to put their headrest down. You have to put the headrest down first. So there you go. That one's down, and then I guess I have to wait. There we go. Now this one will come back up. That's my bad. I forgot to put the headrest down. Just pull that tab, and then now. Oh, nope, that's bringing that one up. Hold on. No. Both. There we go. Both are now going down. As you can see, they're power operated. That was 100% user error, not anything on Ford's dime or time. And so as you can see, now you get plenty of space in the back of the Expedition. This is so much room. I really, really love that. Now, you can fold those seats flat as well, and you could fit quite a fair bit amount of stuff in here. You don't really need an F-150 unless you have a dirt bike and you want to go race Chad on the weekend. So very, very cool to see all of that. I believe one button back up and it will re-rise the third row. Very, very cool to see, very cool to watch. Again, when you know how to do it properly, which I did not. So very cool. The one downside of the stuff back here is that to close the tailgate, you can pull this down, but if you want to hit the button, it's in here, and then you have to kind of run away before it closes. So Dodge, Chrysler products do that as well. I hate it on that, I hate it on this, but overall, pretty good back space. I know the car's on, you don't need to honk. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I actually think this generation of Expedition is pretty handsome. I think it looks good, I think it functions well, and I think that it still looks modern enough. Now, of course, it doesn't look identical to the brand new Expedition, but I think if you put this out on a showroom floor today, you wouldn't really have too many people questioning it. And that's nice. I mean, it's presentable. It has held its own, and throughout all of this interior, it's just really held its age very, very well. It is aging gracefully, I should say, and that is a very nice thing, especially when you're going to spend a decent chunk of change on something. You don't want it to feel outdated tomorrow. But with all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving the Ford Expedition from 2017? Kind of the pinnacle of this generation. Like I said, this generation started in 2008, and I have to say their facelifts were very successful because it's not even recognizable as the same generation. I always thought that this was a new generation. It's not. It was just a facelift. Well, the downsides are few and far between. Like I said, that 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 might be questionable. I had a neighbor that blew up the differential of one of these, but that could have been user error. The 6-speed's fine. It's fine in that regard. However, like I said, this has 183,000 miles, and it still feels relatively good. Yes, there is some scratching on the door handle. I assume whoever owned it probably had long fake nails. You see that also with the volume knob, definitely showing its wear. But besides those two grab points, even the steering wheel has held up pretty well. It doesn't feel like it is a used and abused, thrown away vehicle, and that's nice to see. This thing has held its own for getting up to almost 200,000 miles. Very, very impressive. I've always liked the Ford Expedition. I know that unfortunately this vehicle will never outlive the Excursion. Everyone is still going to want an Excursion, but this is pretty doggone close. It's making just as much power as the Excursion, and it's getting way better fuel economy and only requires just a touch over half the cylinders. I'm thinking of the V10 Excursion. As cool as that is, and as cool as the diesel Excursion was, this is honestly a better product at the end of the day. It's more comfortable. It has better tech, and it gets better fuel economy. The Excursion was measured in gallons per mile. This, all things considered, relative to its predecessor, sips on gas. This is a really solid 3-row SUV, and the fact that there are trim levels up above this is absolutely staggering because this already has great features. I enjoy the touchscreen infotainment. I like the heated and cooled seats. The Sony sound system, the 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6, all of it together is really, really nice. So at the end of the day, I'm really happy with this, and I'm happy to see that it's withstood 183,000 miles. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to North Naperville Autos for letting me borrow their Ford Expedition for today's video. They've been absolutely wonderful to work with. They always have cool and interesting inventory. Please go check them out with the information found down in the description below. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.